Hey everyone, and welcome back to the deep dive for all you UPSC exam preppers out there. We know you need to stay on top of current affairs, so today we're going deep on a topic that could be a real game changer, especially for India's cities. We're talking about NAKSHA, and we'll be breaking down an interesting article from the Indian Express to get into all the details.
Yeah, what's really interesting about Naksha is that it brings up a problem that's been around for a long time in India. That's the huge difference between how rural and urban land records are handled. We've made some good progress digitizing things in rural areas, but a lot of cities are still using these old maps and systems.
Yeah, it's kind of like going back in time.
Yeah.
And as you said, it causes a bunch of problems for how cities are run. Everything from taxes to planning gets messed up because of these outdated systems. And the Indian Express article points out that only a few states like Tamil Nadu, Maharashtra, Gujarat, and Goa seem to be doing things right.
Right. And it's super important for our listeners to understand this difference, not just for the UPSC exams, but to get a bigger picture of how India is changing. This gap between how rural and urban land records are managed is a topic that comes up all the time in your GS papers.
So how is NAKSHA supposed to fix this problem and bring our cities into the digital age when it comes to land records?
Well, NAKSHA is basically the government's big plan to modernize urban land records. It's part of something called the Digital India Land Records Modernization Program, or DILRMP for short.
Okay, so this isn't just some random project. It's part of a bigger effort to go digital and modernize, which definitely fits with how the government wants to use technology for development.
Exactly. And right now it's starting as a pilot project. They're focusing on 152 urban local bodies in 26 states. These are specifically cities with more than 50,000 people and an area bigger than 5 square kilometers. But eventually they want to expand this to all 4,912 urban local bodies in the whole country.
Wow, that's a huge project. So can you walk us through the main goals of NAKSHA? What exactly are they trying to do?
The main thing is to create a complete digital database of all urban land records that anyone can access. And to do this, they're using a bunch of different technologies, like aerial and field surveys combined with something called GIS technology.
GIS technology, that's Geographic Information System, right?
Yeah.
For those listening who might not know, that's basically a way to see and understand data about different places.
Exactly. It helps us understand how things are related in a certain area, which makes it really helpful for managing land and planning cities. And for Naksha, they're using it to make detailed maps and databases. These will have all sorts of information about who owns land, where the boundaries are, and how the land is being used.
And this is where the high-tech stuff comes in, right? I heard they're using drones for these surveys.
Yes, they're using drones with cameras that can take super sharp pictures, even better than satellite images. These drones fly over cities and take pictures, which are then combined with information from people on the ground. All of this is used to create those detailed maps and records we were talking about.
It's like taking a super clear snapshot of our cities, showing details that you wouldn't see with older methods. Sounds like this could be a goldmine of information for urban planners and people making decisions.
You got it. With accurate and up-to-date land records, it becomes way easier to buy and sell property. You'll have fewer arguments about land, and even collecting property taxes will be smoother.
All those things are super important for how cities are run, and it all lines up with the government's focus on making things more efficient, transparent, and accountable.
Exactly. And this is why NAKSHA is relevant for the UPSC exams. It's not about just memorizing facts, it's about understanding how technology is being used to solve real problems, and how these projects fit in with the government's overall plan for development.
So for all our listeners studying for the UPSC exams, this is a perfect example of how you can analyze current events by looking at bigger themes like government technology and urban development.
Absolutely. And we're just getting started. We're going to dive even deeper into the benefits challenges and policy stuff around NAKSHA.
Definitely stay tuned. All right, so let's get back to our deep dive on NAKSHA. We've talked about why it's important and how it works, but I think our UPSC folks would agree that figuring out the so what is just as important. What kind of real impact can we expect from this thing?
You're totally right. And to really get the potential impact, it helps to break it down. At the most basic level, NAKSHA is about creating a digital collection of urban land records that we really need. This by itself is a big step towards making things more transparent and efficient.
Because right now, trying to get land records in a lot of Indian cities is like going through a maze, right?
Exactly. But with NAKSHA, the idea is to have all this information online.
Mhm.
And that could completely change how we buy and sell property managed land and even plan cities.
So less paperwork, things move faster, and hopefully fewer arguments. Sounds like a win for everyone, citizens in the government.
Exactly. And if you think about it from a UPSC perspective, this fits right in with the whole idea of e-governance and making administration more focused on the people.
Okay, so that's the impact on the ground level. But let's zoom out a bit. What about the bigger economic effects of NAKSHA?
That's where things get really interesting. One area where NAKSHA could make a big difference is property taxes. With better and more up-to-date land records, cities can probably collect more property taxes, and they wouldn't even have to increase the tax rates.
So it's about closing those loopholes and making sure everyone pays their fair share, which means more money for developing cities.
Exactly, and having more money for cities means better infrastructure, improved public services, and maybe even a boost to the local economy.
And in the grand scheme of things, a good property tax system is essential for any city to be financially healthy, which then affects its overall development.
Absolutely, but it's not just about the government getting more money. NAKSHA could also help individuals, especially those who've had trouble getting loans in the past.
This is something we touched on earlier, but I think it's worth spending more time on, especially for our UPSC listeners, who might be asked to analyze the social and economic impact of these kinds of initiatives.
You're right on the money. For a lot of people, especially those in the informal sector, their property is their most valuable asset. But without clear proof of ownership, it's hard for them to use that property to get loans.
It's like having something valuable but not being able to use it.
Exactly. And that's where NAKSHA can really change things. By giving people clear ownership records, it could open up access to credit for millions, allowing them to start businesses, invest in education, or just improve their lives.
So we're not just talking about making the government work better. We're talking about giving people more economic power and helping them move up in society.
Exactly. NAKSHA's potential is huge. It's not just about digitizing records, it's about creating a fairer system, a system where everyone has a chance to succeed.
But let's be realistic. Implementing a project this big, especially in a country as diverse as India, it's bound to have some challenges. What are some roadblocks we should be aware of?
You're absolutely right. No project is perfect, and NAKSHA is no different. One of the biggest hurdles is just how big this thing is. We're talking about mapping and digitizing land records for thousands of urban areas across the country, each with its own unique set of issues.
It's a logistical nightmare, to say the least.
It is, and it requires a ton of coordination and cooperation between different government agencies, private companies, and local communities. Making sure everyone is on the same page and working towards the same goal is super important.
And that coordination gets even harder when you consider all the differences in land ownership systems, local customs, and even languages across different states and regions.
Exactly. So one of the big challenges for NAKSHA is to create a flexible system that can handle all these differences, while still keeping the data consistent and accurate.
So it's about finding the right balance between standardization and making it work locally.
Exactly. Another challenge is making sure the data is accurate and trustworthy. We're trying to build a system people can rely on. A system where the information is correct, up to date, and can't be tampered with.
Because if people don't trust the data, the whole thing falls apart.
Absolutely. And to make sure the data is good, we need to invest in ways to double check it. We need to train people who can handle this data responsibly, and we need clear rules for keeping the data safe and protecting people's privacy.
So it's not just about the technology, it's also about the people and the processes behind it all.
Right, and let's not forget about making the public aware and getting them involved. For NAKSHA to really work, people need to understand the benefits, feel comfortable sharing their information, and be a part of the process.
It's about building trust and transparency, which is crucial for any government project.
Exactly, and this requires good communication, reaching out to communities, and a genuine effort to listen to people's concerns and make them feel like they own the project.
So it's not just a tech challenge, it's also a social and political challenge. That requires understanding complex situations and getting everyone on board.
You got it. Implementing NAKSHA the right way means understanding that technology is only one part of the solution. The human element, the social context, and the political will to make it work are just as important.
And this is an important point for our UPSC folks. Analyzing projects like NAKSHA isn't just about understanding the technical stuff or what they're trying to achieve.
It's about digging deeper into the potential problems, the social and political situation, and the strategies needed to make it successful.
It's about developing that critical thinking and analytical mindset that's so important for anyone who wants to work in the Indian administrative services.
Absolutely. And that's what we're all about here on the deep dive. We want to give you the insights and perspectives that go beyond the surface and equip you with the knowledge and analytical skills you need to rock your UPSC journey.
Okay, so we've explored the potential benefits and challenges of NAKSHA, but there's one more thing we need to look at. What are the long-term effects of this project, and how does it fit with the government's vision for urban development in India? So welcome back to the show. We've been talking all about NAKSHA and how it could change urban land records in India. And we've talked about what that means for how the country is run and for development. But like with any big project, the real challenge is making it last.
That's a really important point, and it's something our UPSC friends should be thinking about. Sustainability isn't just about finishing the first survey, it's about making sure the information stays accurate, accessible, and useful for years to come.
Yeah, it's like when you build a house, you don't just stop after you lay the foundation. You got to maintain it, fix stuff, and maybe even add on as your needs change.
Exactly. And with NAKSHA, that means setting up systems to keep the data up to date, changing records when things change, and making sure the technology can handle more and more data.
And that takes long-term thinking. It's not just about the benefits you see right away.
Yeah.
It's about building a system that can adapt and change as cities grow and things change.
Absolutely. One of the biggest parts of making something sustainable is money. The government needs to keep giving money not just for the first survey, but also for managing the data, upgrading technology, and training people.
Because if that money dries up, the whole project could stall and become another unfinished thing.
Exactly. Another important piece is having the right people. We need trained folks who can manage and take care of this complicated system. People who understand not just the technology, but also the laws and rules about land records.
So it's about investing in people, building expertise within the government, and creating a workforce that can keep NAKSHA going.
Right, and this also connects to the need for strong rules about how the data is handled. We need clear policies about data security, privacy, and who can access it to make sure this valuable information is used the right way and ethically.
Because with great data comes great responsibility, right?
Absolutely, and as we rely more on data to run the country, it's super important to have safeguards in place to prevent people from abusing it and to protect individual rights.
So from a UPSC point of view, analyzing NAKSHA isn't just about understanding its impact right now. It's about thinking critically about how to make it last, what the potential problems are, and the strategies needed to make sure it works.
Exactly, and it's about understanding how projects like NAKSHA fit into the bigger picture of urban development in India. We're seeing more and more focus on things like smart cities using data to govern and providing services that put citizens first.
And NAKSHA could be a key part of making all of that happen. It can provide the basic data infrastructure needed for effective urban planning, efficient service delivery, and ultimately a better quality of life for people.
Exactly, and that's why understanding NAKSHA with all its complexities and potential impact is crucial for anyone who wants to be a part of India's development.
So we've covered a lot today. We went deep on NAKSHA, explored all sides of it, and talked about what it means for cities in India and for you, our UPSC aspirants.
We hope this deep dive has given you some valuable insights and made you curious to learn even more. Remember, things like NAKSHA aren't just about technology, they're about people, about how we govern, and about shaping the future of our cities.
And as you study for your UPSC exams, we encourage you to think critically about these kinds of projects, to analyze their potential and their challenges, and to imagine how you can play a role in building a better India.
If you have any questions or thoughts about NAKSHA, feel free to leave a comment below. We'd love to hear from you.
And as always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on our latest deep dives. Until next time, happy learning and best of luck with your UPSC preparations.